What's going on, everybody? About to make my way. I am about to make my way to Towson. Check out this bumper sticker. Well, it's not bumper sticker, but only on the Jeep. So I gotta go up Towson, do a little bit of business. So I thought, you know what? I should do a motor vlog. So I guess I should talk about the positives and negatives so far about riding a motorcycle. I guess I can go back and forth with it. Instead of just doing all positives, then going to negatives. Start with all negatives, then going to positive. Jump back and forth with the positive, the negative, and do a little bit of that. So, positive. Positive, I think, is something that every motorcyclist feels when riding a motorcycle. Is the freedom of riding the motorcycle. And I think it's the freedom of riding a motorcycle without without being tired. I think the only thing that's going to probably beat this, as far as the feeling of freedom, would be maybe flying, and then after flying would be somehow being able to fly on your own. So like flying a plane would be like driving a car, and then somehow flying without the plane, or like a rocketeer type of thing, would be like riding a motorcycle. I know it's something about it that maybe it's the fact that you're not sort of caged up. It takes more of your physical body to get things to happen, and it's not you. It's sort of like it's less of you interacting with a machine, and it's more of you doing the action instead of being in a car and you're just turning the wheel, and that's basically it. I guess unless you're like drifting, I guess, because then you're getting a whole bunch of centrifugal force that'll give you the somewhat the same feeling. But yeah, that's a positive. Negative, weather. There's only small points in time where the weather is just like perfect for riding. The reason I say weather is because let's say it's a hot day. Let's say it's in the 90s, depending on where you are. 90s really hot, and in some areas 90s is hot, but it's not extremely hot. Either way, let's say it's in the 90s and you want to ride your bike, but you're in the city, right? And to get out of the city, it takes you a while. Riding on that 90 day, even if it's windy, sucks. Until you really get to hit like highway speeds or something like that. But if you got like the same weather, but you're in like in the country area, then I guess it doesn't matter that much. But then if it's cold, you can't really do the highway speeds because it's gonna make you colder. But then of course because it's being cold, sitting still is not gonna help you either. So then you get like 70 miles an hour. 70 You get in like the 70s or something like that. The 70s feel great, especially when you're riding in the city, constantly stopping and stuff like that. But once you start hitting highway speeds, at least for me anyway, it can get rather chilly. Of course, this depends on what you're wearing, and of course, the weather affects what you can wear and how much you have to wear. And depending on where you're going, you might have to sit in whatever you're wearing for a long period of time, or you have to take all the stuff off, and so that's why I say weather. Weather is a negative. Also, the type of weather that forces you not to be able to ride. Like, say there's a hurricane going on. Let's say there's a hurricane going on, or it's coming, right? And some of the weather is happening right now. You gotta evacuate. It would really suck to have to evacuate on a motorcycle, or a snowstorm or something like that. A snowstorm happens, but you need to get somewhere. Snow everywhere. You could probably possibly get out, depending on how high the snow is, but it wouldn't be that great, And it also ruins the amount of time you have to wait for that to clear up before you can start riding again. So, weather. Con. Pro. It's a lot easier, at least in Maryland, to get a motorcycle than it is to get your average transportation. It would be a car. So much easier. You're starting off 18, you want to get a car. You don't have a license yet. You gotta go take the test. Take your written test. Then you have to, it's mandatory that you go to a driving course. You do the driving course for maybe like 2-3 weeks. It might be a week. But you go to the driving course for a week, let's say. Then after the driving course, then you have to put in, I think you have to put in like 60 hours worth of driving, documented driving, before you could take your driving test, I think. Then you take the driving test, you gotta pass that, and then after that, you get to drive, and you get your license, but it's like it's a provisional license, if I'm not mistaken. So then you got like 100 more hours or something like that to get experience in before you can get a full license. And then of course, cars aren't cheap unless you get like a rust bucket type of thing for your first car, which is definitely saves you money. And I actually would suggest that anyway. But if you want something that's going to last for at least a year or something like that, you're paying like $4,000 or $5,000, and then you got the maintenance and all that. Anyway, but with a motorcycle, you take a 3-day course. I took a 3-day course. I paid $350 for that course. After that course, after I passed it, I did the written, I did the driving. The very next day, I think it was the very next day, I got my license. And that was it. And now all I gotta do is buy a bike. So, in a week, I could get a motorcycle on the street, legal, in a week. And then for a car, for me to be driving, it'd take me like a month or so. And even after that month, I might not have enough to have a legit license, like a full license instead of just a provisional. So that's the pro. Con. well, this con depends on what kind of motorcycle you have. And I guess even though it depends on what kind of motorcycle you have, it also um, it affects you in a different way depending on what kind of motorcycle you have. But that is, the con is space. You know, the fact that everybody has a tendency of needing something to transport. You gotta, at some point in time, you're gonna have to transport something. If you're a motorcycle rider, you're gonna have to transport something, and you need that space to be able to transport it. So just having some storage is a problem. But of course, you got touring bikes and stuff like that where they have saddlebags. I mean, like big old saddlebags and a seat bag and all that. But those bikes cost a lot more than it would to get, the other bike. So you either have to pay for either way you have to pay for your storage. And so that's kind of a problem. Like when you buy a car, you buy a car for $5,000, and I have plenty of space for most things I need, unless you like, unless you're trying to transport like some drywall, then you might need a truck or something. But when you buy a car, some type of vehicle like that, it comes with space. It comes with space for storage. Motorcycle, now unless you spend extra money on the bike, it doesn't really come with it. So that's a negative. I don't mind bringing my book bag, but when you get to that destination, you gotta do something with that book bag. And if you're gonna be out all day, it just adds up more and more stuff that you have to carry around that you can't just leave, type of thing. And also that the amount of storage is always small, so it's a little harder to have a bunch of things. The pro is cost. I was just saying before about it cost me $350 to take the course, right? And then I had to pay, I don't know, like $20 or something like that to get the new license, and that's it. So it cost me about $370 to get the bike, to be legal with the bike anyway. And then you gotta buy, but you don't have to, but you should, I'd say, buy gear. Then my insurance is a whole lot cheaper. I pay $380 for the year, and I've heard of lower prices than that. When I was paying for my car, I was paying maybe around like $120, $130 or something like that a month. And then some people might say, oh well, the tires cost a lot. Yeah, I mean, but it's only 2 tires, compared to a car. I have 4 tires. When you gotta replace your tires, you got 4 you gotta replace. Most likely you only got 2 you gotta replace. That's it. Make things a lot better, a lot simpler. If I'm not mistaken, all the tune-ups and stuff like that is cheaper. The upkeep, a whole lot cheaper. I mean, all in all, to me, having a motorcycle is a lot easier on you. Con is protection. You can buy all the gear in the world, but it's not going to stop a car hitting you at 60 miles an hour. And a lot of car drivers have a tendency of running to other cars that's about the same size as them. So you being even smaller, it gives you more of a chance of getting hit. And I know I was saying go back and forth, but I just saw a negative of riding a motorcycle. Exhaust. You don't really have any protection against car exhaust. And some cars just dump out exhaust in your face, and you can't do nothing about it. You know, you just gotta eat it.